The burden of selflessness and societal expectations. Raise your hand if you ever put someone else's needs before yours. And raise your hand if you did something in your life that you really didn't want to do, but you did it anyway. And raise your hand if you took on a heavy responsibility that you really didn't want to take on, but inside you felt like you had no choice. Now, when we focus on the well-being of others without expecting any personal gain or recognition, is considered to be the ultimate selfless act. Putting the interests of others before our own while positively influencing their lives shows that you have empathy, compassion, and a desire to see them win. But what happens when selflessness becomes a burden? What happens when it weighs heavy on your soul? When you've done all you could for someone, and in your mind, they don't appreciate it? Does it turn you into someone you don't recognize? Now, before we move on, it is my intention to show you how you can still keep that same altruism and empathy without the feeling of guilt, anger, or being taken advantage of. See, the world doesn't teach you how to be selfless and take care of yourself. Everything you see and everything you read, selflessness is regarded as the ultimate act. It is praised. But I believe that the world needs to hear this message here and now because we are still learning how to love ourselves. If we don't adopt the tools that I'm about to share with you, we will still be subject to the acts of selflessness, but we will die inside because we never learned or had the opportunity to heal. Now, this is a picture of my wonderful grandmother. It is because of her selflessness that I stand before you today. My mother died of AIDS when I was 7 years old, and it was my grandmother who raised me and my siblings. I am the middle child of 6, and we grew up in a household that was full of excitement and music and family love, but sometimes it was too much to bear. See, even though my grandmother was doing the selfless act of raising us, deep down, she really didn't want the job. It was my belief that she was angry with my mother for leaving, and leaving her with such a heavy responsibility. How do I know this? Because she would say things like, I would be further along in my life if I didn't have y'all. I'm not your mother, I'm only your grandmother. If I didn't take you guys in, you would be in a home. See, my grandmother already raised 11 kids and probably felt that once they were grown, she was done. She would be an empty nester and just live her life. But as life had it, my mom passed. And now she had to start all over again, raising kids between the ages of 2 and 16. Now I know what you're thinking. Your grandmother said some harsh words. Those things you don't say to children. This is what it means to be family. It was her job to take it over. Well, let me ask you a question. When you had an idea about your life and how it was supposed to be, and then it was suddenly interrupted with a responsibility that you didn't even ask for, how would that make you feel? See, the burden of selflessness means sacrificing your own comfort, time, and resources. And sometimes it's temporary, and sometimes it's permanent. And if it's not handled correctly, it invokes a lifetime of regret and pain, and can even be passed down from generation to generation. Now, when my grandmother passed, my siblings and I was on our own. And I wanted to support as much as I could until it became a burden. I became the chauffeur, I was the cook, I was the assistant, and I was the provider. Now, being newly married at the time, it was hard for my husband to understand why I was so dedicated to my family siblings and why I was supporting them so much. He would say things like, they're grown. They will find a way. Why are you so worried about them? But like my grandmother, I felt like it was my responsibility. I was the one that was in a good position, so why not help? And also the tapes in my head from what I would hear as a child that my grandmother would say always played over and over again. When everyone else leaves you, whether friends or mates, it is your family that will be there for you. And it made me feel like I had no choice. And as time went on, a big part of me knew that I made a big mistake. So I started feeling like my kindness was taken for weakness. It was invoking a side of me that I never seen before. I started to become mean, snappy, silent, short, and I was even avoiding going home. Now, the turning point came when it started to affect my physical health. I started having panic attacks and found myself avoiding everyone and everything and trying to get rid of all of my problems. I wouldn't pick up the phone and my business wasn't performing well. And then something so simple happened. I was talking to a friend of mine, and just so plainly and so easily, she said, Gloria, you need boundaries. You need to be able to say no. So I said to her, how the heck do you do that without people getting mad at you? And what I discovered was you can't. You really can't. Remember, when you start to put your needs before others, it's considered to be selfish. So you will face some adversity. But I also discovered that boundaries is not enough. You also need to understand your pleasing programs. You also need to learn how to do an energy audit inside and learn how to make your no guilt free. So I'm going to run through those things really quickly so that I can show you how you can start to heal yourself on the inside. Now, boundaries are like the invisible force fields that define and protect the sacred territory of your self-respect and your well-being. And it also ensures that only those who deserve a place in your life are granted entry. When you invite those people that you want into your sacred space, that space is where your peace is. And no one, and I mean no one, is allowed to be in that space. And you also need to understand your pleasing programs. In 2002, a poll from YouGov, a market research and data analytics firm, surveyed 1,000 American adults and found out that 49%, which is almost half, would identify as people pleasers. Now, we don't want to admit that we want people to like us and even love us, but we have to know it doesn't have to cost us our sense of self. You also have to accept that you cannot please everyone. Please understand me and hear this very well. It doesn't matter how accommodating you try to be. You won't always be able to please everyone. People may be disappointed, but that's their reaction to manage, not yours. The next thing you need to do is learn how to do an energy audit. That's the things that are happening on the inside of you. Conducting an energy audit on your feelings involves assessing and understanding your emotional state and understanding the emotional drain. So a good thing to use is something called I statements, because I statements are the communication techniques used to express your feelings and your thoughts. So let me give you an example. I feel unappreciated when I give you resources and you don't utilize them. It makes me feel like you don't care. I appreciate it if you can communicate better about what your needs are so that we could be on the same page. The other thing, and other habit you need to adopt, is you have to make your no guilt-free. Now this is a big one, only because it deals with family. Family comes with a strong sense of duty and obligation. And you may feel guilty if you say no to family members' requests. But as you know, if you cannot do something, do not give up your power to the person when you really don't want to do it or you can't do it. Now, I understand we have cultural and society norms. People have different cultures where family is very big. You do anything and everything for family. But I want you to listen to this. Most of the time, it is the way we feel about ourselves that makes us feel guilty about saying no. We feel like we are a bad mother, a bad sister, a brother or daughter if we say no to our family members. But you got to understand your priorities. Before saying yes or no to a request, take a moment and clarify your priorities. What are your goals? What are your commitments? What are the things that you want to do? And knowing that that matters first will allow you to prioritize what you can and cannot do. And there's another thing that I want you to remember that I just thought of. Be clear and direct about what it is that you want. When you decide to say no, do not over-explain as to why you're saying no. Let your no be your no and your yes be your yes. Because when you over-explain, you leave room open for negotiations. And make sure you practice the assertiveness. Make sure they understand that you are bold and that you are confident in your answer. Because sometimes when you shrink back and you say no, or if you're talking to a family member that is very aggressive and you feel like you can't say no, they will win all the time. So you want to make sure that when you say no, that you are respectful and that you are also respecting their boundaries and yours. So it doesn't matter if it's a family member, a friend, a coworker, or a child. The only way that you can give them the best of you is if you take care of yourself first. I'm going to say that again. The only way that you can be the best for them is if you take care of yourself first. So be kind to yourself. Your healing depends on it. Thank you.